The light died at 600 meters, not with a flicker or a warning, but with the chilling finality of a snuffed candlewick. It wasn't the headlamp failing, it was the absolute crushing blackness of the Cueva del Diablo, the world's most aggressive and unforgiving underwater labyrinth, swallowing every photon. Below this threshold, light was a myth, and only the hum of the rebreathers and the thud of blood in the ears proved existence. Kai felt the familiar prickle of claustrophobia, a sensation he hadn't fully conquered in 20 years of technical diving. It wasn't the narrow squeeze of the passage, it was the sheer weight of the 2 miles of rock and water above him. He adjusted the trim on his 12 gas tanks, his hands moving automatically through the complex motions of a man married to the abyss. His comms unit crackled, a sound as welcome as a sunrise. "Kai, you holding steady? That passage is tightening up. You sure the cartography is right?" It was the voice of Dr. Elara Vance, his geological specialist, his partner, and the unresolved emotional vortex in his life. Her voice, even filtered through the mic, carried the slight, vibrant edge of someone who loved the danger she was facing. "The cartography's spot on, Elara. Just a tight squeeze. We're below the established benchmark." "The old team never got this far," Kai replied, his voice a low, disciplined rumble. "This isn't just a new cave. This is another world." "That's the point, isn't it? Another world. Just remember the main objective, Kai. We map the new network, verify the hydrologic flow, and get out," Elara reminded him, a sharpness in her tone that betrayed her own tightly controlled excitement. She knew the unspoken rule: the deeper you go, the higher the price for mistakes. And they had a history of paying steep prices. Their relationship was forged in silt and tempered by survival. They had been a couple once, 2 years prior, before a near-fatal ascent, where a compromised oxygen line forced Kai to make a split-second decision that saved her life but fractured their trust. Now, they were strictly professional, held together by the thin thread of their shared brilliance and their mutual addiction to the deep dark. "Rocco, how's the main line holding?" Kai transmitted to their safety anchor specialist, positioned 400 meters above them. "Solid, Kai. Looks like the line from the Erebus expedition snapped right here, 200 meters up. We found the sheer point." "Good call, bringing the high tensile braid." The third voice, practical and reassuring, came through. The Erebus expedition. That was the ghost they were chasing. A highly funded, top-secret team that vanished 3 months ago. Official consensus: equipment failure, bodies lost to the system. Unofficially, rumors of their final panicked transmissions spoke of something far stranger, a perpetual rhythmic thrumming sound they couldn't identify, and a crushing sense of being watched. Kai pressed onward, his powerful dive lights slicing through the black water. The passage opened abruptly into a gargantuan chamber, the limestone walls soaring up and down into the darkness, making Kai feel like a microscopic dust speck in an infinite submerged cathedral. The water here was startlingly clear, a profound, unblemished sapphire. Elara surfaced next to him, her exhale bubbling loudly in the vast space. She swept her light across the wall. "My God, Kai, this ceiling. It's miles wide. This isn't part of the Cueva del Diablo system we know. The rock composition is entirely different." "The new network. We found it," Kai breathed, the enormity of the discovery momentarily overriding his caution. As their light scanned the colossal cavern, Elara suddenly froze. "Wait! Look!" Embedded in the crystalline mud, impossibly deep, was a familiar, high-tech piece of equipment, a custom-made military-grade rebreather unit, identifiable only by the distinctive blue alloy shell used by the Erebus team. But that wasn't the chilling part. Next to the rebreather, someone had placed a small, flat stone. On the stone, scratched into the calcite coating, were 3 distinct, jagged tally marks. 1, 2, 3. "It's a marker," Elara whispered, the excitement gone, replaced by a dread that resonated even through the comms. "Someone put this here. They weren't just lost, they were counting." Kai felt a chill colder than the surrounding water. He turned his light to the far wall of the chamber, a dizzying distance away. Elara, look at the echo signature. There's a structure, artificial. They finned across the void, the distance taking agonizing minutes. The water was so quiet here, the vastness so overwhelming, that the silence truly did feel lethal. Kai fought the urge to check his gauges every few seconds. The structure resolved itself into a small makeshift habitat, a segmented waterproof shelter cobbled together from emergency materials and the wreckage of their lost equipment. It was a beacon of impossible hope and deep despair, anchored precariously to the cavern wall. As Kai approached, a figure in a damaged dry suit emerged from the habitat's lock, their face shielded by the reflective visor. The figure didn't swim, they simply hung in the water, motionless. "Identification, Team Erebus," Kai transmitted, his voice tight. A slow, deliberate movement. The person lifted a hand and pressed the external comms button. The voice that replied was weak, scratchy, but undeniably human. "They said no one would come. We're running out of air. 2 of us left. We've been waiting." The voice broke, rough with dehydration and terror. "My name is Anya, and the other is Alistair. They took the rest." The "they" sent a spike of ice through Kai's heart. He exchanged a frantic glance with Elara, their professional facade dissolving into shared fear, and the deep, instantaneous understanding of their new, terrifying reality. This was no longer a science expedition. It was a rescue, deep in the Earth's throat, and they were hopelessly outmatched. The next 48 hours blurred into a waking nightmare defined by the rhythmic hiss of their rebreathers and the constant, cold calculations of survivability. Dr. Alistair Finch, the lead hydrologist of the Erebus team, was badly injured, a compound fracture to his leg sustained, he claimed, during a desperate escape from a cave-in days after their air ran out. Anya, a young botanist, was mentally fragile but coherent enough to confirm their worst fears. The cave had turned on them. "It started after the 3rd day," Anya recounted, her eyes wide and fixed on the darkness beyond Kai's light beam, even from the safety of the habitat. The sound, like a low resonant note, it got louder, deeper. It wasn't the equipment. It was the rock. "The current?" Elara asked, meticulously checking the survivors' remaining oxygen reserves. Alistair shook his head, his face pale beneath the grime. "No, the current here is negligible. This sound, it made us sick, physically ill. And then we started getting lost. Passages we'd just marked vanished. It felt like the cave was actively moving against us. That's when they were taken." "Who is they?" Kai pressed, his hand gripping Elara's shoulder, a familiar unconscious gesture of support they had used 1,000 times before. Anya shuddered. "The others, David, our pilot, Sarah, the safety tech, one by one, they'd just swim into the dark, like they were called. We tried to hold them back, but they were stronger. They looked possessed. They followed the thrum." Elara looked at Kai, her green eyes dark with concern. "Acoustic resonance, coupled with deep nitrogen narcosis. They were hallucinating, Kai, but that doesn't explain how 2 people survived while the others succumbed so violently." "They had this," Anya said, holding up a small, smooth, dark grey rock. "Alistair found it. When you hold it, the sound stops. It brings clarity. It's what kept us sane." Kai was skeptical, but he couldn't dismiss the evidence. 2 rational, highly trained divers were claiming an invisible acoustic menace had driven their colleagues to suicide or madness. Their immediate problem, however, wasn't psychological. It was structural. "Rocco, we've got 2 survivors low on reserves. We need the emergency resupply packs and the medical kit now." Kai called up the line. A moment of static, then Rocco's voice sharp with panic. "Kai, Elara, the main line is compromised. I've got 200 meters of cable, just gone, clean shear. Something huge, a shift, a slide. I don't know, I can't reach you. I'm anchored, but the entire chimney system is unstable. I'm trying to send the remote drone, but the flow reversal is killing the battery." A surge of current slammed into the habitat, rattling the structure like a tin can. The water, clear moments ago, was now thick with an opaque, churning silt. A massive geological shift was happening. "Flow reversal!" Elara shouted, checking her own pressure gauge. "The deep pressure differential must have flipped the entire system. We're not in the main conduit anymore, Kai. We're in a drainage chamber, and it's collapsing." The exit they had taken, the wide, inviting cavern, was now a maelstrom of rushing water and falling debris. They were trapped at over 600 meters, with 2 injured civilians, a half-snapped safety line, and an unstable ceiling ready to crush them. "We can't go up the way we came," Kai stated, forcing his voice to remain calm, projecting control he didn't feel. He gripped Elara's hand again, consciously this time, holding it beneath the habitat's hull. It was an anchor point, not in limestone, but in history. "There has to be another way out, Elara. You mapped the fissures. What did you see on the deep scan?" Elara pulled her hand away, a flicker of pain crossing her face, but she plunged immediately into analysis. The hydrologic model suggested a low-pressure anomaly 50 meters south, deep in the basalt layer. A smaller, older fissure. It's a tight, untested squeeze, but if the current's reversing away from us, that passage might be a high-pressure escape route. "Tight and untested," Kai repeated, staring at the swirling silt. 50 meters. We have 2 hours of good air. We can't drag the survivors through a fissure, not Alistair with that leg." "We don't have to," Elara said, her eyes suddenly alight with cold, dangerous inspiration. "We use their habitat. It's pressure-rated. We seal them inside, rig it to the emergency buoy, and send it up the main conduit. The flow reversal might actually help push it toward Rocco's anchor point." It was a desperate, suicidal gamble. If the buoy line snagged, the habitat would be dragged down and crushed, but staying meant a slow, suffocating death in the dark. "Rocco, prepare to snag an unmanned payload," Kai ordered, his voice echoing in the small comms chamber of the habitat. "We're sending up the survivors in their rig. You have to stabilize the line and pull them in. Elara and I will follow via the secondary fissure." "Kai, that fissure is a death trap. It's too small and you'll hit a saturation bottleneck," Rocco protested, his voice cracking with fear. "It's the only way, Rocco. If we make it, we rendezvous with you. If not, you know what to do." Kai looked at Elara, his gaze intense. "We secure this rig and get them out, together." As they sealed the survivors inside the habitat, Alistair clutching the strange grey rock, Enya murmuring a desperate thank you, Kai and Elara were left alone in the violent, collapsing cavern. The sheer, terrifying vulnerability of the situation stripped away all pretense and professional distance. "If the fissure is a dead end," Elara began, looking at him, her lips forming an unspoken question. Kai reached out and gently adjusted the air coupling on her rebreather, his glove brushing her cheek. "It won't be. You mapped it. I trust your math, Elara. More than anything." "You didn't used to," she whispered, the raw truth hanging between them heavier than the water. He looked into her eyes, reflecting the dim light of the headlamp. "That time, I trusted the machine over my heart. I won't make that mistake again." He paused, breathing deeply. "Before we go, I need you to know. That day when I cut your line, I didn't save you because you were my assignment. I saved you because I couldn't live in a world where your light didn't exist." Elara's eyes welled, instantly swallowed by the cold water. She didn't speak, but she kicked forward, closing the distance between them. In the crush of 600 meters of water, their gloved hands found each other. They tightened the straps on the survivor's habitat, gave it one last powerful shove toward the main conduit, and watched the small metal pod disappear into the churning darkness, relying on Rocco and fate to do the rest. "Now, for the impossible," Elara said, taking the lead. "Hold my fins." The fissure was not merely tight, it was a punishment. It was a passage carved by subterranean geological forces, too narrow for their full rig, forcing them to squeeze their bodies through, tank first. The silt and sand scraped against their dry suits, 1,000 tiny knives. The thrum was back. It wasn't external, transmitted through the comms. It was internal. A deep, resonant vibration that seemed to originate in their bones. It was a sound beyond hearing, a fundamental bass note that spoke of the Earth's indifferent power. "Elara, what's the pressure?" Kai grunted, scraping past a massive basalt intrusion. "It's spiking, Kai, fast. We're gaining depth, not losing it, she replied, her voice strained. The model was right. This fissure is a pressure release valve, but it's still running down. We're going the wrong way. No, we have to go deeper to hit the final release point. The exit is 100 meters down, then sharply horizontal. We follow the pressure until it breaks. Elara's breathing was rapid, ragged. The air was getting thin and the stress was absolute. The vibration intensified. Kai felt a crushing weight on his sanity, the familiar fear of the dark turning into a genuine primal terror. He saw shadows moving in the silt, too large, too fast, defying physics. He knew it was the narcosis, amplified by the resonant frequency. Follow the thrum. Let the cave take you. The thought wasn't his. It was a cold, soothing whisper in his mind. He closed his eyes momentarily, fighting the urge to surrender. He saw Elara just ahead of him, her headlamp a single, fragile beacon in the chaos. Elara, talk to me. Tell me something real. Kai fought the madness, kicking desperately to follow her. The wedding, Elara gasped, her voice barely registering over the mechanical whine of their rebreathers. Remember that old chapel in Santorini? We promised we'd go back and do it right, without the dive rigs, without the suits. We will, Kai vowed, slamming his body against the rock, forcing himself forward. We're going to get married on solid, dry ground, no water, ever again. And the reception? We never decided, she pressed, the game of focus working. A simple taverna, Kai forced out, the effort draining him. Loud music, bad dancing, too much ouzo. Just us. The wall of the fissure was moving. It wasn't the cave shifting. It was the intense pressure forcing them to squeeze past rock that should have been impassable. Kai! Look at the pressure spike! We're at 650 meters and I see the opening. Now! Elara lunged forward, vanishing momentarily. Kai followed, pushing with the last of his strength, letting go of all caution. He shot out of the fissure into a wider circular tunnel. He was disoriented, floating free, but the debilitating thrum was gone. The water here was moving with a powerful, horizontal flow, the perfect current. Elara, he called out, his voice hoarse. She was 10 meters ahead, quickly securing a line to a fixed anchor point on the tunnel wall. She turned back, her visor glowing. Horizontal, Kai! This current will carry us all the way to the antechamber. We're home free. Relief flooded her voice, thick and intoxicating. But as she spoke, a sound cut through the comms, a violent, tearing groan of stressed metal. The anchor point she had just secured, a fixed point of rock, was fracturing under the immense pressure of the reversing current. Elara! The wall. Get away from the wall. It was too late. A piece of the cavern face the size of a car detached and slammed into Elara, a glancing blow that didn't crush her, but sent her spinning violently into the current. Kai watched in horror as her light, her only proof of existence, was swept away, accelerating into the black. Elara! Elara! Talk to me! I'm coming! Kai screamed, abandoning the safety line he'd just secured, kicking with frantic energy into the powerful, uncontrolled current. He was flying blind, trusting only the general direction of the flow. Minutes stretched into an eternity. He conserved his air, listening only for the mechanical hum of her rebreather, or the sound of her frantic breathing. Nothing. Then a flash. A faint, distant, green glow. He kicked harder, pushing his body to the absolute limit. The green glow became a steady stream. He caught her 40 meters down the line, pinned against a limestone protrusion by the force of the current, unconscious. Her air consumption gauge was redlining. She was hyperventilating, drowning on the limited air from her own tank. Kai stabilized her instantly, securing her to the rock face, and checked her rig. The blow had damaged her primary regulator. He pulled her close, his heart a frantic drum against his ribs. He unhooked her from her damaged rig and connected her to his emergency bailout regulator. Their air was now one, their survival, indivisible. He pressed his helmet visor against hers, the movement a primitive, powerful kiss of glass and metal. Elara, Elara, come on. Wake up. Her eyes fluttered open. She saw him and a weak smile touched her lips. Bad dancer, huh? she managed, her voice a frail whisper. Worst, he confirmed, the fear slowly being replaced by a fierce, desperate resolve. But we're going to dance, we're going to make it out. Kai secured them both facing the flow. The current was now their friend, their vehicle. He pulled the emergency signal beacon and sent the final, critical transmission. 2 in the pipe, holding the current, secondary exit, follow the horizontal line. Then he released the anchor. The current spat them out 200 meters later into the familiar murky water of the Cueva del Diablo's antechamber, a place that now felt like the surface of the moon. Rocco, seeing their emergency beacon blip, was waiting. The rescue was brutal but fast. Kai, Elara and Rocco fought their way up the remaining 400 meters of vertical line, performing staggered, critical decompression stops. Every second was agony. The pressure gradient was unforgiving, threatening to turn their blood to foam. When they finally broke the surface of the water, it was into the welcoming, blinding glare of emergency lights and the frigid air of the surface staging area. They were immediately surrounded by medics, the dry air burning in their lungs, but they had made it. Kai ripped off his helmet, gasping, the cold air hitting his sweat-drenched face. He looked at the chaos around them, the medics tending to Elara, the crew pulling the buoyant habitat containing the 2 survivors, Alistair and Anya, to safety. The impossible had been achieved. He stumbled toward Elara, who was already shivering violently but conscious, a silver blanket wrapped around her. Kai, the habitat, did it make it? She managed, her voice weak. It made it, he confirmed, dropping to his knees beside her. Rocco snagged the line perfectly. They're safe. You're safe. He reached out, his hand trembling, and gently lifted the corner of the silver blanket, pulling her close, resting his forehead against hers. They were filthy, dehydrated, and on the verge of collapse, but they were breathing the same air, under the same sky. The thrum, Elara murmured, looking up at the cave entrance. I think I know what it was. We didn't hit a basalt layer, Kai. The model was wrong. We hit the deep tectonic shear line. The thrum wasn't a monster. It was the sound of the world breathing, the constant seismic vibration of 2 massive plates grinding against each other, resonating through the water and the rock, and amplified by the narrow fissure. The cave didn't move, Kai said, understanding dawning on him. It just sang a song that drove men mad. Exactly, Elara whispered. The fear was real, but the monster was physics. Kai smiled faintly, leaning back, looking at the grey rock Alistair was still clutching, now lying on the ground. And that rock? Just a very dense piece of sedimentary slate that muffled the vibration. Pure scientific luck. He looked back at Elara, his eyes clear and filled with the profound emotion he had spent 2 years locking away. I'm done, Elara. Done with the darkness. Done with the risk. Not because I'm afraid to die, but because I'm afraid of losing you to it. I know, she said, reaching up and touching his grimy cheek. The only light that mattered down there was yours. I saw it, Kai. It's time to build a life on dry ground. He took her cold, gloved hand, pulling it off. He kissed her bare fingers right there in the grime and the chaos of the Cueva del Diablo. Santorini. 2 weeks, Kai said, his voice firm, a promise made and sealed. I'm going to need help planning that reception, Dr. Vance. Elara laughed, a sound that was pure, clear oxygen to his lungs. It's Dr. Vance Morgan now, Kai. And yes, you absolutely will. They watched as Alistair and Anya were wheeled away, alive, their impossible story a whispered testimony to the abyss. The lost team was gone, but the cycle of loss had been broken. Kai and Elara had faced the abyss, found the truth, and, most importantly, found their way back to each other. The deep dark had taken much, but it had given them a terrifying, beautiful clarity. They were better and safer together. They would spend the rest of their lives making up for the lost time, basking in the sun of their own hard-won light.